Oh, good, you're back. Now, former presidents John Agyekum Kufuor and John Mahama are among the dignitaries this afternoon at the National Development Dialogue, which was organized by the Church of Pentecost. It's not just them. The Speaker of Parliament, the Chief Justice, the Vice President, who's representing the President, are all there. In effect, this is perhaps the most powerful collection of Ghanaians in one room. So, what is the plan of the Church of Pentecost? Well, they believe the nation's development needs a rethink. And these individuals, as well as our MPs and other Ghanaians, are crucial in changing this narrative. We're going to hear from key speakers shortly. But first, let's listen to the chairman of the Church of Pentecost, Apostle Dr. Eric Nyamiche. He addressed the gathering to open the conference.
Why is she coming into these matters? Many reasons, many reasons. But I will limit myself to three. The purpose of the church is the transformation of this flag, the flag of Ghana. This flag, every flag, please let me have it. Yeah, this one. That is the purpose of the church. That is why we are salt and we are the lights of the world. If it doesn't shine in the darkness, then you can't call it light. The purpose of the church is the transformation of this flag. Number two, history invites us to join in the conversation of national development. Number three, righteousness exalts a nation.
So that set the tone. We can now hear from the former president, John Agyekum Kufuor, former President Mahama, Vice President Dr. Bawumia, Speaker of Parliament, and the Chief Justice.
And we are all here to consider how we deliberate on the development of our nation using moral vision. And as I've said, you don't talk morality without talking humanity. So Pentecostal Church has done well in organizing this huge meeting, and I'm sure the meeting is also being relayed across the nation. I wish you success. So over the next 2 or 3 days of the forum, you come up with ways and means to enable the people generally to contribute to find the way forward towards developing our nation without the biases and, if you like, the unkindness that we tend to display to each other, even as we try to develop our country.
What happened to our value of being each other's keeper, each his brother's keeper, where communal assistance to each other on our farms and in other tasks that we had to undertake were easily available? What happened to our abhorrence of greed and theft? Why do we celebrate persons who today are wealthy with dubious sources of income, and yet society is not concerned about what the source of income is, and it's only about the person's wealth? Ladies and gentlemen, ethics have a direct impact on national development. And as a student of history, I can say unequivocally that in history, all civilizations that have fallen have done so after they lost their moral and ethical compass. It is our prayer that Ghana continues to maintain its moral compass in order that we can continue to ensure national development, prosperity, and dignity for our people.
We have also digitalized the operations of many government institutions, and in the process, we have reduced corruption in those institutions. I mean, at the ports, for example, we've instituted a paperless port system One of the interesting things about the implementation of the paperless port-in system was the resistance of the customs officers when we wanted to make the operations paperless. The officers on day one, the first day of the operations of the paperless port system, some of them organized demonstrations against the system because they did not want the system to work. But we persisted, and the system is working. We have digitalized the operations of the DVLA, and it's now one of the world-class institutions operating in the country. You don't really need guru boys and to pay bribes to work in that. Applying for a passport today is a very easy process. You don't need to go and pay guru boys. You can do it online. It will be delivered for you, and you can proceed. Electricity Company of Ghana, today you can buy your credit on your mobile phone. And it is very, very simple. I will tell you one thing. We noticed a very, very interesting piece of data which speaks to the problems at ECG. We looked at the data, and for a period of 4 years or so, the revenues of ECG were virtually constant. I said, this cannot be possible. How can you get more customers and your revenue is constant? And the interesting thing was that the value was virtually the same, the constant value. They didn't even take their time to change the value. So we said, no, we need to send in a team to look at the architecture of revenue collections at ECG and digitalize the process properly. So we sent in a team to ECG. They were collecting 450 million Ghana cedis a month. When we sent in the team, there was sabotage. Malware was introduced into the system by people working right there. We worked through that with the help of national security, and we then brought in a whole new architecture for ECG. Thanks to the Minister for Energy, Matthew Opoku Prempeh. We brought in a whole new architecture for ECG. And after this completion of this work from the digitalization process, 450 million a month has now increased to 1.2 billion every month. Just think about it. You've increased from 450 million to 1.2 billion by doing nothing but making sure all payments are now electronic, no cash, and reconfiguring the architecture of the payment system at ECG. That's all we did. Similarly, at the passport office, we have increased revenue from 1 million Ghana cedis a year to 64 million Ghana cedis a year. So these things, when you look at the nature of behavior in these institutions, there was clearly a lot of leakage. But through digitalization, we are compelling behavior which is morally upright.
It is clear that the constitutional mandate given to the judiciary in Article 125 of the 1992 Constitution to administer justice requires us to maintain and enforce the highest standards of ethical conduct in the nation on one hand, and uphold the innate need of the human soul for justice on the other hand. This is a duty that the judiciary shares with the church as an institution. Justice is a sine qua non for peace, stability, and quality of life in any nation. In words attributed to Pope John Paul II, if you want peace, work for justice, unquote. A nation that loses interest in the rule of law and delivery of justice is one that sets itself up for destruction.
Good character builds trust. Without trust, people will never follow you. And without followers, obviously, one cannot lead. It will be a walk in the park. Therefore, effective leadership requires integrity. As leaders, particularly political leaders, we must be willing to be held accountable for our actions and inactions. We must conduct ourselves in a manner that is beyond the behavior of Pompey's wife. That is beyond reproach. And we must uphold the highest standards of ethics and morality.
Right, lots of talk there about rethinking Ghana, seeking an ideal Ghana. What would that Ghana look like? Well, let's talk about it with somebody who was there. Carlos, it's good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Quite an event. Everybody who is everybody was gathered there. Let's talk about that. You know, presidents, former presidents, two of them, vice president, the Speaker of Parliament, almost every MP you've ever heard of.
Yeah.
Tell us about the atmosphere that was created by these dignitaries.
So I think that it was a very charged atmosphere, and most of the MPs who were there, you could tell that these are people who really want to take this dialogue serious. The fact that we as a nation, we need to rethink the way we do things in terms of our moral fiber and all that. So within the room, when the speakers were actually making their statement, you could see applause and all those things, showing that the participants themselves were happy with the message being delivered. Yeah.
The vice president spoke for quite some time. He made some important points. How did the people respond?
Yeah, so in the auditorium, there was a lot of applause for him. I mean, he actually highlighted some of the challenges, some of the successes talk by the Akufo-Addo-led administration regarding the fact that they have introduced a number of digitalization projects to ensure that we're able to curb corruption at the ports and all those things. And he received a lot of applause. But speaking to some other participants, they were of the opinion that that wasn't the best platform for the vice president to be talking about achievement of the Akufo-Addo-led administration. But all put together, you could tell that those from all diverse, the religious body, the traditional authorities, they were so happy about the entire engagement. Yeah.
Apparently, the chairman of Pentecost Church wasn't particularly enthused about the sort of raucous, support that, to his mind, was a bit politically motivated. What did he have to say about that?
Well, he was of the opinion that as a nation, we need to shift away from partisan politics, where we want to project one political party above the national flag, for instance, national agenda. So he urged participants to be wary of that, and instead of championing the cause of their political parties, they should champion the cause of Ghana. Yeah.
Now, we also heard from former presidents, the two Johns, Kufuor and Mahama. Wrap up their thoughts for us. What did they?
So basically, they are pushing for that kind of Ghana where we will move away from self-centeredness to a more inclusive, governance, to ensure that we don't become self-seeking people, and we should be able to do away with corruption and all that. But mainly, the partisan politics is one of the things that they've been talking about at the conference.
Do you get the sense that those who have attended this conference are going to walk away with any intention at all of being different, of rethinking? Do you expect, from how it unfolded, that we will be seeing a new Ghana from tomorrow onwards?
Yes, I'm very optimistic. I mean, speaking to a number of MPs, they were so clear that for them to suspend sitting in Parliament and to be at the conference, meant a lot to them. And so they are picking a lot of things from this conference, which is going to help them make right decisions when they get back to Parliament. So we are hoping that it will not become one of those talk shops. We want to see action after this conference. Yeah.
All right. Were there any action points made? Are there any expectations we can start to measure our leaders up against?
Not yet, because tomorrow is another session, so we are hoping that by the end of the conference we'll get some actionable things tomorrow. Yeah.
Carlos, we're glad you were there. Thank you very much. All right, there's more to come, and of course, we were privileged enough to have Carlos there to keep an eye on proceedings. Stay with us, there are more stories on the way.